Hi, this is Michelle Rumshock, naturalist, and welcome to Virtual Experiences with the Hancock Park District. It's Friday, so we're hitting the trails. We're coming to a little early today because we're trying to get out before the storm hits. We're on the Blanchard River again, which we were a couple months ago looking at some of the small fish. And we're back again, this time with David Myers, our Natural Resources Assistant. And he's going to talk about some of the small fish, kind of comparing them to each other, and also the habitat that they live in the river.
All right. Yeah. All right. So we'll just dive right in here. I'm going to talk to you about darters and minnows and some of the different characteristics they have, which better help them suit their environment. And I'm going to talk to you about their environment they live in here in the stream. So I'm going to start by trying to get out a darter here. So, let's see here.
And if you remember from before, the darters were the ones that, when Chad talked with us, that the males were really brightly colored. So we had a rainbow and a green.
I think I got a rainbow here.
If memory serves you right, so we'll...
Okay. All right. Let's get more water in there.
More water in that one. There you go.
All right. So what we have here is a rainbow darter. And some major differences between darters and minnows is that darters lack a swim bladder. So they stay on the bottom. They typically like riffles, like you see behind us in the river here. Characterized, you have a lot of cobble and other rock that break the surface, and it's usually pretty shallow. They like moving water. If you try to keep them in a tank at home or anything like that, oftentimes if you don't have a lot of moving water, they don't do well. Their body shape is also a little unique as well and stuff, as usually they have a flatter head and it helps them stay on the bottom so they don't get pushed downstream by current. Aside from that, they come in a lot of different unique colors and some varying different shapes. Rainbow darters are a very popular one for people that like to see neat looking colorful fish, especially when they're in their spawn. When they spawn, they turn even brighter and more vivid colored, and hence their name, rainbow darters. All right, so now we'll get out a minnow.
And you can go back on our YouTube channel that we have to when we caught the rainbow one. So while he did have some color here, definitely in the spring he did have more coloration. Like I said, he would have been kind of looking for a mate back then.
There you go.
All right. Oops.
All right, and then right here we just have a typical top minnow, a really popular one you see swimming around the river. These guys can stay in riffles or they can stay in pools, which pools you usually find at the head or at the bottom of a riffle. And typically pools are the slack, non-moving water. They're usually deeper, and sometimes if they're in the shade they can be a bit cooler. So you might see bigger fish in there. When you run into sport fish like smallmouth bass or largemouth bass in the river, they will hang out in the pools just below riffles and they'll wait for things to get pushed out of them down to them. Or some of them move up into the riffles and try to catch prey there. Minnows though, as far as their difference from darters, they actually have a swim bladder. Top minnows get their name. They're always on top of the water, cruising around the edges. As far as the moving water, I think they stay more towards the edges out of the moving water, but they're very common and you can catch these guys all over the place.
Now is this one like average size, or how big can something
That
like
one's
this
decent
be?
size. That one's not bad. I mean, they don't get any bigger than a couple inches typically. They can get nice and round too though. If you like fishing for other fish, minnows, in my experience, typically can make some good bait, especially if you're bass fishing and stuff like that. But aside from darters though, darters are pretty specific to riffles, and meaning that they need the moving water, and they really stress out not moving water. Other guys in here that we have, there's a neat one in here, if I can get him out, which I almost had him. Let's see if I can trap him. There you go, I think I got him. I think, nope, that's one of the other darters. I'm looking for a hognose sucker in here. And the hognose
Is that right
sucker,
down there?
that's a carp.
That's the carp.
We do have a little common carp in here.
Oh, okay.
We can show him off. So this is a little tiny version of the big brute fish you kind of see cruising around the river from time and time again. People think they look a lot like koi, just a lot more basic color. They're bronzy gold most of the time. This is just a real little one, but it's just a common carp. That guy right now and stuff, he's right around maybe an inch long. He can grow to be up to 30 or more inches long, easily, given time. They primarily eat vegetation, and carp are not so great in our streams as they're not native. Common carp aren't. They do uproot vegetation, and they can cause the water to become dirty if there's a lot of them. That's a common reason why the Division of Wildlife would get rid of them or dispose of them. But they're so numerous, and they spawn so well and reproduce in our river so well because it's pretty well suited for them that we probably won't be seeing the end of them anytime soon. So there's plenty out there.
He almost looks like he's trying, because don't they on the bottom try to get the gravel and dig up stuff?
Yeah, you'll
That's
see
what
different
he's-
things. Carp,
He's
carp,
trying to do there. If you,
Yeah.
I don't know if you can see it or not. Like there's nothing on the bottom, but it looks like he's taking his mouth and trying to scoop up, like he's looking for something to eat.
common carp, you
on the
see
bottom
them in the stream sometimes stirring up a lot of mud. That's when they're usually foraging on the bottom. Carp do move into riffle areas, and they will swim in riffle areas, and they'll just suck up all the invertebrates and stuff that float by whenever it floats by. Different times of the year, they eat different things. But yep, they're pretty much tolerant to just about anything. The one I couldn't find in here was our hognose. Our hognose is a really unique one just because its interaction with other fish in the river. It's another riffle fish, and you'll find it in some other areas, but the hognose is kind of best friends with smallmouth bass. Smallmouth bass will kind of adopt a larger hognose sucker, and they'll swim up behind them because hognose suckers have a really flat head, and they sit right on the bottom and they root around in the rocks, and they get the crayfish all stirred up. And when the crayfish swim up, the smallmouth bass like to accompany them. They eat the crayfish whenever they swim up. So it's a neat little thing and stuff to think about fish interacting with one another. Smallmouth bass will even chase other smallmouth bass away from a sucker that they want. So it's a really unique interaction. I think it's really cool. And unfortunately, I couldn't pick him out of there. I thought he might have been this guy on the bottom, right down here, but I can't get him to cooperate and get in the net, so you can see a good view of him from here though.
Of course, it lists some crayfish, which are plentiful in the river.
Yeah,
We're trying to
there's
catch some of the
plenty of
fish.
crayfish.
Always catching those. All right. Well, thank you, David.
Yeah.
So thanks for joining us today. Again, join us on Monday at 1 o'clock for Discovery Stories, and have a great day.
Bravo.